Okay, video 6. I gathered some samples of wallpaper. This is just to look at the different textures to see how they would compare and then to use them later. I just quite like how the patterns are displayed and how each pattern could mean something different. So conformed could have straight lines, and then the more open patterns and bright patterns could mean other stuff as well, and its selection of the pattern could describe your mood or your personality itself. So yeah, I'm still looking at textures and the way people use texture to interpret how they're feeling. So I gathered 4 different textures. I'll show you them. So this was just a bit of fabric, so quite soft, some rough patches, and using the texture, these are just bits of sharp paper. Using the textures, I wanted people to feel them and describe how they felt using adjectives, as these would be ways in which I could then look at different textures and know what to relate them to. And just a bit of wire. So I do like the effect that came from this. So the fabric samples, they were more soft, slightly dried, smooth. The triangles were more spiky, stiff, hard, uncomfortable. The twigs were brittle, weak, spiky, prickly, messy. And then the wire was more structured, stubborn, supported. And with each of them as well, I asked people to write down different emotions as well. So there was a comfy or confused, because there was so many different textures. Angry, unnerving for the spikes and the bits of paper. Then there was guarded and defensive with the twigs. And then there was anxious and uncomfortable for the wire as well, which I quite like, as wire's generally quite strong and quite supple, but if it's making people feel anxious, people could relate to it as they're working by themselves, as wire would, and just supporting themselves. Yeah, so that was just a little quick experiment, and then I went on to use different fabric sample and added paint to see how the different textures would compare when using different samples. So the fur here, this one I do quite like the feel of. I don't like the look of it though, as it gives quite a distressed and distorted look, but the feel of it is quite rough and it's quite jagged, but it's quite hard and solid as well. With this one's more smooth and quite subtle and could represent more of a embedded in emotion, so sadder or deeper. The thread here, this one could be quite confused as it's messy, it's all over the place. It just doesn't know what it's doing. And yeah, I did use this for the lace, and I do quite like the idea of adding in clothes, as people tend to express themselves through clothes and how you would express yourself, as this is a sleeve cuff and it is a really nice texture and fabric as well, and someone might have chose to wear this because that's how they express themselves and it makes them feel girly or cute or however they feel. But clothes can be a way of expressing yourself, so other than movements and other than body language, it's another form of expressing yourself and showing your emotions towards the world in an outward motion rather than in a concealed motion. So I do quite like the idea of using clothes within my final piece, or as an idea towards, and maybe I'd paint them and such. So yeah, this one here could be quite shy, as you can't really see the paint, it's all gone. And then that one's quite bold and obvious and flat and smooth. With the wallpaper samples, I went on to create different textures, again using the textures through marks and emotions that I've used throughout, tested and sampled throughout my book. I just wanted to do this on a larger scale. So I've taken pictures here of a larger scale using, again, the marks that I've created at the beginning of my book. So there was the circular motions, used the glass to represent more of a loved emotion. With this one I used blue and white paint, and I really like the effect that it gives off, because blue is quite a cool colour. It could be portrayed as also sad as well, but then using the circular motions it's almost cool and content with how they're feeling with the whole circles. This one was more of an angry one, kind of in the form of Jackson Pollock. It was more splashing, and this one I used pink paint with the blue in the corners as well. And I do like the contrast on the black paper. I feel like that could really be a really nice theme, although I'd have to see what it looked, if I was to use the black paper, I'd have to see what it looked like on without the texture underneath. I do like this one as well. This was done with a roller, and I just rolled the paint and it's blended together really nicely, and you can see within the texture of the paint and how it's settled after having been compressed by the roller. And I do really like that. It's as if it's been damaged or hurt or gone through stress or trauma, and it just is how it is. So yeah. Okay, and then I did some more samples as well based around this Romanian-born artist. She uses texture again, so she uses denim as a base and then just builds upon it using cardboard and corrugated card to print. I do really like the effect that the corrugated card gives when printing, and also the lace here. So I did sample the lace prints here. This one I used spray paint on top of the lace, and then the print was left behind, and then this one I painted onto the lace and the print printed onto the black background. With this one I do really like the effect it gives. With the lace itself not printing exactly right, I feel like it makes it look a bit more distressed, a bit more traumatic and a bit more weathered, which is the look that I would go for if I was wanting to use this. I feel like it's a nice way to add a little bit of pattern within the design, and especially with the flowers and the floral, it kind of makes it targeted to any range, and the flowers could represent obviously happiness. People drew them for when I did the sample straight away, but yeah, I do like the effect that that gives. Okay, so I'll stop that video there.